All right. I'm thinking we are live now. Yes,
Yay.
we're live. Hi, everybody. I would like to welcome you to You Are Unlimited TV again. And again, I always want to say thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support and for being here with us. And for everybody that listens on the replay, thank you for sharing this time with us as well. I am so excited to have Alexis Edwards, Dr. Alexis Edwards. I didn't put that on the first thing, sorry. I would like to welcome you to our show. And I don't really want to spend too much time in the intro because you have such a fascinating bio. So could you tell people a little about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I always love connecting and all of that fun stuff. So I'm a doctor of Oriental medicine. So that kind of colors my sphere. What else? All sorts of things. Start from the beginning, I suppose. Yeah. So I'm a doctor of Oriental medicine, and I have an in-person practice as well as a distance healing practice. And I also teach. Within my practice, I do functional medicine and Chinese medicine and herbs and all kinds of fun stuff. I grew up in a spiritual household and with a spiritual practitioner father, and both my parents come from lineages of people who just are aware of the things, right? And so that was interesting, and I kind of always thought that that's the way it was. And I often have to remind myself that that isn't like really normal. So that's definitely colored most of my world and my decision making and just like my sphere. And my mom's a nurse, so those two things intersect. And so like I guess those are the basics of, in a nutshell, right? The 2-second bio.
Well, I was intrigued that you really started your process at a very young age.
Yes.
Can you talk a little, because not everybody started that young, but you started your process young and you kept going with it. And I find that to be very fascinating because you expanded on it. You just didn't shut it down.
Oh yeah. So when I was little, when I was a little girl, when I was like, gosh, I want to say about 8 or 9, I started having experiences. So like I said, my dad's a practitioner. So I've been around, like they would have seances at the house and like all sorts of different things. So like I said, it was normal. And I grew up with spiritual stories, right? I fell in a pool once when I was just under 2 years old. My dad was working on the pool and heard a splash, turned around, in terror, obviously, because he knew his little toddler was with him. And I was standing on the side. This is the story that I grew up with, which I believe to be true. I was standing beside the pool with a tuft of hair sticking straight up.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't know how to it was the deep end of the pool. So with things like that, like I had awareness of these sorts of connections. And so I remember when I was around that age, like between 7 and 9, like a lot of prophetic dreams. Like I remember putting it together and thinking, oh wait, I dreamt that last night, or I dreamt that a week ago. And so, prophetic dreams feel different than deja vu,
Right.
And there's a lot of things that I wasn't aware of, but that sort of thing I was. The dream thing I was aware of sensations. I remember when I really first started noticing like energies outside of me and being aware, it was frightening. And I do think to a certain extent, like I made really clear boundaries, like, oh no, I will not see in the physical kind of thing. Which I think is really common, especially around that age. That's when it really starts to blossom, and it's a matter of like which way you're going to go. And I didn't really express a lot of this to my parents, so they weren't able to really guide me through it. I kept a lot of it in.
Wow. Why do you think that you kept it in instead of sharing it with them?
I think it was a lot. I think it was maybe overwhelming, perhaps. Yeah. I don't know. Go ahead.
what brought you then into the medical side of what you were doing? Because you didn't just, you went into the medical side of it, but you didn't stay there. You went back to the metaphysical side of it, or the well-balanced whole body side of it.
Absolutely. So so that being said, I had just awareness, didn't really dive too deep into it, just kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of experiences here and there throughout. And then when was it? Always had a lot of interest in science. I still do. I love science.
Yeah.
And I love every time there's an research study or an article that comes out that like matches the metaphysical, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're catching up. So I love that. It's exciting. And so I took a lot of sciences in high school, and then I was actually in my undergrad, I was almost complete with an elementary education degree.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And then I was working for an acupuncturist.
Okay.
And so I was doing her notes and billing and all those sorts of things, and interacting with her patients and her clients. And it was really amazing because I got to see, what the medicine does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing and magical and deep and just gorgeous. And just the fact that people can heal, I think that was the thing that was striking to me, because I grew up within that medical paradigm. It's funny because it was like really spiritual metaphysical, but really Western medicine too, right?
Yeah.
Which is an interesting dichotomy. Just
that's what I thought. Yes.
Yeah. And so it was just neat to see people. And I remember the one story that I always tell that was really striking to me was there was a woman who had MS, and this acupuncturist office was on the second floor, and there was no elevator. So her husband would carry her upstairs. So, I mean, anybody who even off the cuff knows, that MS is a degenerative disease. While it go into like sort of lulls, I mean, there is no getting better from MS. And over time, this woman was walking up the stairs herself and not being carried anymore. And so stories like that are not really within the realm of what's expected or possible,
right.
Was noticeable to me. And I just sort of put it, in the cap. And I remember looking up, going to acupuncture school at that time. I had just turned 22. Yeah, I had just turned 22. And so I then got pregnant with my son. My husband had him. And so I left that and went for, more stable job, working for insurance, all that sort of stuff. And, I had him, and I think it was about a year and a half. And I just had this really big push to go back to school. My mom is a big education person. And so I just had that in the back of my head. And I was working with someone, and she mentioned something. I don't even know how it happened. It was so long ago. It was like, those moments that don't actually make sense and how it put together. And we were talking about holistic medicine. And then she's like, you should go to acupuncture school. And I'm like, I should go to acupuncture school. So I went into the acupuncture school. I was living in Miami at the time, which is where I'm from originally. And I walked into the school, and we started a week later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I did that. And then the group of students that I was with were really interested in the metaphysical side of things.
Awesome.
I have a tendency to latch on, like you.
Exactly.
The people always, we always find our tribe.
Right.
And so, I lost my train of thought. Yeah. So I took a course. I must have been, I don't know. At that point, I was doing cards and crystals and just like kind of dabbling and interesting and really like opening up at that point, which started, I think that whole part started before I even had my son, just like the kind of growing more, but with just reading books and that sort of thing. But then when I was in acupuncture school, I took my first like intuitive development class. And that was just, that was it.
Yeah.
It was, the thing that's really important, like anybody that's listening or watching, is like skill is so important. Like capacity is different than skill. Like there's people who, sure, they innately have an ability and they have a capacity, but that doesn't mean they're actually skilled or know what the heck they're doing.
Correct.
you know? And so sometimes people confuse the two. They think, oh yeah, I can do this thing, but you actually, they're anyway.
They're doing it, they're not living it.
Right,
It's the
exactly.
difference. Yeah, they're not experiencing what it is to do that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think
Good
there's
job.
something huge to be said within the metaphysical sphere of, you know, the very old school way was to apprentice. It's just
Uh-huh.
what it was.
Uh-huh.
You always learned under someone. It wasn't just
Yeah.
reading a book, writing, you knew how to do things.
Yeah.
That wasn't the way it was at all.
Uh-huh.
And so now, oh, this is a little bit of a soapbox, but I'll say it anyway because it's coming up. But like, you know, it's just that that's a little bit more common, I think.
Right.
Like hanging a shingle saying, I'm this
Right.
thing. And like,
Yeah.
but what are you talking about? So
Yes. Yeah. No, I agree with you. You see that in everything, really. And I was just talking to a friend of mine earlier today, and we were talking about that. About there's people that really are passionate about what they do, and then there's people that just do this job. And there's a big difference.
oh yeah.
You can tell them. So yeah, because when I talk to you, that's the first thing that I got from you was the passion that you have in what you do and how you really love what you do. So you went from doing that and you went into Oriental medicine, and then you had your practice going, and at some point you started merging the two together, and that's when you were channeled and came up with the program that you came up with. Do you want to talk a little about that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just sharing it. I realized I hadn't shared in our places. So I was just taking a moment to invite our friends to come hang out with us.
We got your mother-in-law here.
Oh, hi.
She's telling everybody, that's my daughter-in-law. Hi, Marilyn. Hi, Denise. Hi, Kathy, mother-in-law. I did both Denises. We have both Denises here. Yeah, so yeah, if you can talk about that.
Yes, I have people in my group saying, "Where is this happening? Where are you? Why can't I find you?" So I just shared in there, so they should be able to. Okay. So, do we have a question? You said.
Then they can ask you questions.
Yes, exactly. So melding the two, I would say. What happened at first was just really like, you know, expanding my practice and honing what felt good. And I became a doula actually too, around at that time. And
do you want to tell people what that is in case people
Sure, absolutely. So a doula is a labor support person. It is a non-medical role in labor and delivery and through the pregnancy process, and also, you know, giving birth and emotional and physical and spiritual support. And it's a role that was really common and is common indigenously, but, you know, isn't, as we modernize and all of that, it's like sort of an odd sort of thing, but we're thankfully coming back to that model. So yeah, so I trained in that. And then once I had my license, I was doing the two. So I was attending births and doing acupuncture on laboring moms, which is a whole live stream on it itself. So
oh wow, yeah. I would think so.
But in any case, so with all of these different, it's so many little experiences that added up to the whole, right? Like all of these things that allowed me to become like more energetically sensitive and really like, you know, it is true how every decision brings you forward to where you are, you know.
And I want to interrupt you just really quickly, because that's an important point, because a lot of us get stuck and we forget that it's one step at a time. So I'm really happy that you said that. And I hope that people will really listen, that you didn't just get to where you are. You started somewhere and you progressively took the steps to get to where you wanted to be.
Yes. And I think that's common. Like people are like, well, why am I not there yet? Why am I not there yet? Why am I not there yet? And you can spend your whole life, why am I not there yet?
Right.
Which is a side topic because you were there, you just didn't realize. And you just, you know, life is a continue, you know, yes, it's sort of cliche that it's about the journey, but it really is.
Right.
You know, because your destination will constantly change.
Yep.
You know, it's like, I'm going to visit the entire world, but why am I not there yet? Well, it's the whole world. What are you talking about? You know,
it's very true. I mean, you think you have something in your mind of what you want to do, and then you get there. But as you've gotten there, you've now gone beyond that and saw something else that you want to do. And that's the way that we progress in life.
Yeah, Absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly it. Just to keep going and like that recognition of how far you've come, like
Mhm.
having something that I think part of why we get stuck is that we step into this new normal,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and we don't notice. I've seen this a lot with like inpatient care, like someone will come in with a frozen shoulder,
Uh-huh.
have pain, and like it's not getting better. Well, you were able to brush your hair yesterday and you haven't been able to do
Yeah.
that. So it's like we don't notice something because it's not where we need it to be yet. We don't,
Right.
and I think like spiritually speaking and energetically and evolutionarily,
Mhm.
we step into these new versions of ourselves so
Right.
subtly that
Right.
we ourselves don't notice it. And
Right.
so I don't know, finding ways to measure that for ourselves
Mhm. Mhm.
and noticing. I think the best way really is to notice within our reactions, responses in situations. Like
Mhm.
everyone is so much wants like, can I do readings or can I channel or can I like, am I psychic enough or whatever the
Yes.
heck, or
Yes.
like healer enough or like whatever. And it's like, the spiritual journey, sure, when we're in roles of service and all of that, that's important. But the way in which we notice like these evolutionary changes for ourselves is like, how are you responding in your day-to-day situations?
Yes.
Are you being less reactive?
Mhm.
And that's cool because then you get to say, oh, look how far I came. That was cool. So
And the other side of that, as you go through that process, though, and you're the observer of how you're changing, is to have self-love because we are changing every day. There's no way we're not going to be. So
absolutely.
having that self-love as we go through the process. Yeah.
It's huge.
So after all of that, now we've gotten back to now you're kind of weaving these things together.
Yes.
And yeah, let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I started working with a really amazing spiritual practitioner. Her name is Mary Mueller Schuton. She's phenomenal. She has a bunch of books, and just I recommend them to everyone. They're really no BS, legit stuff, and there really isn't too much out there in terms of a lot of what's out there is like aspirational, like people
Mhm.
who want to become something rather than how to deal with, a psychic who's in overwhelm because they're not skilled and they're just like they can't go out
Right,
because there's just so much data and they don't know what the heck is happening to them.
right.
So she kind of that's her shtick is all of that,
Okay,
helping
okay.
people who are like already there. Anyway,
Mhm, mhm.
she's an acupuncturist as well.
Hmm,
Anyway, so I worked with her one to one and um that experience and learning skill and I learned a lot of spiritual tools and shamanic tools, for lack of a better word. Again, another live stream talking about why I don't identify as a shaman, even though yeah,
There's
um,
people that have definite opinions about shamans, and it's like
yeah,
either they love them or they're not the big fan.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Have, I don't have an issue with shaman. I have an issue with the appropriation of the word and the
Mhm.
confusion of psychological construct versus actual spiritual experience.
Okay, that's yeah, I get what you're saying. I understand.
You know, to
And
go,
that is a
and
whole
we
nother
can go
subject.
but that's another thing. You say
Yeah.
you're doing retrieval, but you're like, okay, did you help a person? Sure. But are you actually doing a spiritual process?
Yes.
That's not something you just, oh, I want to go become. That's just not how that works.
No. Mm-mm.
And so I will just leave that there.
Yeah, let's do that because that's I have several friends that are actually
Yeah.
shamans
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
done the hard work, and it is hard work
Absolutely.
to be a
It
shaman.
is.
And when they do get to that point, they really respect and honor what it is that they do. But it's
Absolutely.
like anything, like you didn't get to where you were overnight. You had to do the
Yeah.
hard work too. And we have to get to our destination by doing our own hard work.
Yeah.
And it may
Absolutely.
be different. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we'll leave that there.
Yeah. Yeah. But it is something to explore because it has to do like with appropriation of culture and like how actually we should talk about doing that because that would be so lovely. One of my favorite things to talk about is like how what happens to us as immigrants into this country in terms of the loss of magic that happens. And
Mhm.
part of like what's happening now is that there's this reclamation of magic, but we're like without a tether. we don't have the old nanas and grandmothers and to show us the way, because there's this loss of magic that happened entering the United States, honestly, more than anywhere else. So that's a whole, I mean, that's another topic on to itself, but it is really quite fascinating. And I think that that's part of why people seek things perhaps outside of their culture, because it's what's available. Because
we have lost that here. We've lost the respect of as you are aging, the elderly. They, instead of going with wisdom, they go with being stupid. I mean, we've gone the other way. We look down on the elderly. They can't do these things. They can't drive. They can't whatever.
Right.
It's really sad what we do with our elderly here, and without, we don't respect the progression of growing older and the fact that through that aging, we're becoming wiser.
Oh, absolutely. And something that I really am passionate about, which is sort of odd because of my age, but like that croning phase, it's something that's really like, that's when we put women out to pasture, right?
Right. Yeah.
And like, that's when they're the most valuable, honestly.
Yeah.
Yes, we create and we do all this, but like there's so much wealth and beautiful knowledge, and like I don't know, it's just, but anyway, that's, again, we should make a list of all the topics.
I was just saying, we're now getting a series going here. But, I think that's really important, because I don't know, I went on a little tyrant the other day about women's rights and the movements that are coming and all that, but it's not about women and men. It's about individuals being who they are. And that's one of the things that we have to really impress on people as we grow. There's nothing wrong. I hate it when people say, well, you're just a kid. Well, no, they're at that stage for a reason. Right. And we have to help them progress as we are progressing, and we have the help as we progress. And that's the way it should be. And we've lost that. That's really sad. And you're right. We are thrown out to pasture when we hit this certain age. Like, we don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
That needs to change. Yeah.
It absolutely does, because it's absurd.
Yes. But we will make that happen.
So where were we? Somewhere.
We're going to go on some more commercials.
I'm sure we'll.
Okay. So go back to, you're in your practice, and now you're starting to put more of the intermixing the modalities that you've learned together.
Yeah. So that, like we said before, experience really is the best teacher. Of course, also having appropriate skill is a great teacher too, but experience, once you have that skill, is really important, because that's what helps really expand things out.
Right.
Really start to learn who you are as a practitioner, I think. And so my abilities, just in terms of, so I'm primarily claircognizant and clair sentient, so clear feeling and clear knowing for people who don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So those abilities really, really amplified, and we're just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I had like a lot of synesthesia into like seeing because of it, because it just kept, and there's a lot of confidence building that happened, right? And something that really guided me, that continues to guide me, is I remember from the time I was a little girl, really just wanting to do what I was here to do, which is such an odd thing as a child. Like, I have a lot of odd things, by the way, but anyway, I was a very odd little kid. So, gosh, my brain went away.
You just were being you.
Yes.
You just have to say that, because you're not really odd. It's, some people don't know what they want to do. Some people do. And it's just, you had a passion and a direction
for sure
in life, and you embraced it.
Yeah. And I think that it's outside of what is culturally common, let's say that. Right. At stages of development. So yeah, I always wanted to do what I was here to do. Like, to the point of like painfully I just want to do what I'm here to do. Like, it was, I don't know how else to put that, because it's something that has guided me throughout.
Yes.
Where I do a lot of the things that I do, and the decisions that I make, and teaching and learning, and I just like do them. Like, I get an insight to do it, and I just do it. And, people say, well, Alexis, how do you, I don't know. I just, when it feels correct, it's in front of me for a reason, and I don't need to know the why. And I think anyone listening, if you get one thing away that is you don't actually, the why's none of our business, or the how, or like any of that. Like if something feels correct, you know, and it feels aligned, then just go do the thing, you know?
Because you'll find the way as soon as you start the path. You'll find
absolutely, absolutely. And it's like, I think you did say something really interesting that I really like, that you said how I continued. Like it wasn't just that I started young, but that I kept going. And I think that that's so important to people, for people to take away. It's like that keep going kind of thing,
right.
is really important.
Yes.
So there was all that keep going energy. It was all of the, you know, at that time, I was in a practice where I was seeing about 75 to 100 people a week.
Wow.
So that's important to say, because I don't know, I was like superhuman at the time. I have no desire to do that again, but it was such a good time to do it, because I really like, talk about being thrown into the fire and being built in fire, you know, because I just did it. Like, and I served all these people, and I was integrating the spiritual work in with the acupuncture, seeing the volume of people. And so I was really able to know my shit, basically, because in it, you know. And part of that experience, and not just part of spiritual work, is having the relationships, you know, those external spiritual unseen relationships. So having teachers that are non-physical, right?
Yeah.
And those sorts of experiences, that is what led me to the expansion principle. So during that time, you know, interacting with my ancestors is a really big thing, and honoring them, and being guided by, you know, a primary answer that kind of speaks for everybody, and that sort of thing. It was really important and helpful for me. And that's really what helped me get my stuff together, and like just that keep going. And there was such a beautiful familial and familiar sensation
Yes.
on that relationship. And so, and it was safety. It was learning that energy that I don't understand is safe, and learning discernment is huge, of course, in that as well.
Yes.
And something that from the time that I started really diving deep into this direction, like way deep, the name Simon kept coming up. And it was a name that came up. It just was kept like, you know, knock, 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 knock constantly. And, you know, I was working with my teacher at the time, and, you know, she was just so wonderful. She could very much see what was going, but it's like, let's just slow our roll. Let's like do things as they need to. And, you know, there in the development of all of this. And it was a really intensive year of working together, honestly, you know, when you're in this stuff. And I think about 6 months in, I was learning some new thing, and I got a little stuck, and I got stuck in fear. And it's something that I continue. That's the biggest thing. And just a side note for everyone, like fear is so much our human, like it's such an interesting thing to be incarnated into these human bodies, because human beings are built for safety with fear. Like we're built, yes, we're love based, and yes, all these things, but the way that because our physical body is quite fragile.
Yes.
And so in order to keep our physical body safe, like we are created in a way where our, you know, endocrinological system, that's what keeps us safe. So being afraid is what makes us have all of that response, all of that, you know, flood of chemicals and hormones. And I say that because sometimes it's so easy. Well, I'm just so afraid. Oh, fear, fear, fear. And it's like, hang on a second. You're built that way. You're human. There's a biological process. And that's, you know, I like to think of that part that holds you back as the human, not just the ego, because ego to me is more of a psychological construct. And there's more than that. It's not just our minds that are in the way. It's our actual physical form. It is being human. So I say that because that's the biggest thing that I continue to work on and struggle with, is that fear thing, that it's just normal. It's part of it.
You're not alone in that. I mean, we all, and but the thing I want to do is have the balance here, because I hear what you're saying, and all of us do. We're definitely affected by fear, but it's understanding everything that you just said, because that's all a chemical, physical thing.
Yep.
But then we have to work through that and learn in ourselves, which I know you're going to talk about, because this is where you're going to hold all this to keep moving forward. So I just really want to impress that in anxiety, as Sherry said, that those play a part in our everyday activity. But just because we're human and we go through these expressions, we still are a soul. And that's going to help us be the driver in getting this car to start moving again, because we can't stay in the fear.
No, we can't. Absolutely not. And I think, and the only reason I brought it up in that way is because it's just common. Like, people will say, well, I'm stuck. It's like, well, hang on a second. Like, you acknowledge why, like you're something wrong.
Yeah.
And it's, something that I to talk about a lot is that, it's getting to a point where you're more soul led than human led. Right.
Yes. So we need to make friends with it. I think we're taught that we should, control our fear. We should be mad at our fear. It's a bad thing. It's not. It's an actual emotion that we need to make friends with, because it's telling us something.
Yep. It sure
doesn't
is.
mean we have to listen. Yes, all of them.
Yeah. And and the thing about fear too is, like, it often will show us what matters to us.
Yes, exactly.
We're afraid because something's important.
Right.
Like, if you're afraid of something that, anyway, we could go on. I'll try and stay a little more focused.
You're doing fine.
So thanks. So in terms of all of that, processing the fear, it was like a wall. Like, I couldn't really move forward. And so I did some exercises with, like, okay, so where does the fear live? What do I, what is it trying to tell me? Just, interacting and interfacing with it, which is what you do, right? And what do I need to be okay? What do I need, to help work with this fear, right? And what came up really clearly was the name Simon.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's like, okay. And so I told her, and she says, well, check in with your ancestors, check in with your peeps, and, ask, is it time for you to meet him, to interact? And so I got, like a resounding yes, like, what in the world are you waiting for? Like, can we get on with the show, kind of thing? And he, is a non-physical, multidimensional being, for lack of better words.
Uh-huh.
And it's a relationship. In the beginning, you think it's just this thing. Like, I thought, okay, like, I'm going to do my work, and let's just see what we do. And it very quickly was evident that we were going to be channeling energy. And so, the attuning process to that for myself, and like that takes a long time, just, and something that we've noticed and suspected that at this point, I'm aware that probably started to try and come in when I was a kid. And channel in that way. I used to have nosebleeds frequently at a certain age, and I had them, and there wasn't anything the matter. But anyway, so where are we? We are so in channeling the energy, having this relationship, really, because when you're interacting with non-physical, it's like any kind of relationship. And I just want to, like, sort of throw in a side note for everyone listening to this. Like, this isn't going out and looking for a spirit to work with. This isn't like, be aware, know what you're doing. Please do not tonight, like, just go, like, actually, like, know what you're doing, people. Discernment's really important. So anyway.
Very important. Very important. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it makes it so easy.
Yes.
No, it's not like that.
You have to know what you're doing when you're dealing with the realms that you can't see. Work with people that are knowledgeable and know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Yep, for sure. So we started channeling energy, and I started doing it with my clients, and that was a whole process, right? And like learning how to do that, and like what worked, and what were we even doing, and like
how did your clients take it at first? I mean, it definitely is a learning process for you. How did they
at that point, I was probably about 3 years into the practice. Like the by I mean practice, like the actual physical place that I worked.
Yeah.
And so I had most of my clients had been with me like 2 or 3 years at that point.
Okay.
And so what I will say to anyone out there saying, no, I can't tell people, when people are ready, they're there for a reason. They're interacting with you for a reason. People, when it doesn't match, they fall away, allow it to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try and hold on. Don't try and make things be the way you think they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, that's probably the best recipe for banging your head against the wall that there is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I just, as I became more open and ready, I was having more and more clients coming in really open and ready. And at that point, a lot of people, I'll say, like, I wasn't doing this on all 75 people, right? These were the ones who trusted me and who needed it. And like, there was discernment within whom I approached as well, you know, and everyone that I worked with this was very happy and excited to do that. And so I missed a part. Before I was doing that, I did something called body talk. It's a modality. I don't practice it anymore. But that was really like my gateway of not being ashamed and not needing to hide. Like, it was a really good shield for me because it was structured and it was this thing. And like, you know, it's still way out there. I mean, honestly, the grand scheme of, but for me, my mind was okay with that. And so that was the entrance, and that was what started the woo within my practice.
Yes.
And so at this point, when we're starting to channel, and I didn't really discuss the relationship with Simon until the modality took off, which I'll get to in a minute. But that was what we were talking about. We were talking about channeling energy. That's how I would present it. Even now, I'm kind of surprised at the depth that I'm discussing it, but it's not a secret. It's on the website and it's on places. And, yeah, it's something that just evolved. And you were asking about people. Yeah, they were just cool. And for people, very few did actually know, but most of them didn't. And it was channeling energy, and they were comfortable with it. They're like, of course, please help me. And so then we started. Go ahead.
So when you're saying very few knew, very few people realized that you were channeling this energy. Is that what you mean by very
few people that there was a consciousness behind?
Okay. Other than just you, that there was another consciousness working with you.
Awesome. And honestly, like, the universe is conscious, energy is conscious. Like, it's so, you know, it seems like this weird thing, and it's really not. No, it's not. It's just, it's not common. You know, it's not
again,
something commonly talked about.
Yeah. It comes back to our heritage too, because in United States and our way of thinking, that's taboo. That's bad. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Or in other parts of the world, it's more acceptable. Yeah,
absolutely. So I've always been aware of like that outlier kind of thing, and being aware of, you know, standing on the corner with a sign saying, you know, the end is near. That's probably something that is going to label you as an outlier, as a crazy person. So doing those sorts of things, that's just not, let's not do that, right? And so approaching the spiritual and metaphysical in a grounded way has always been really important to me. And to really just, it is what it is. You just say it, like, you know, your delivery is important. The way that you discuss things are important. Being grounded in what you're talking about is really important. Like, very few people are going to listen to you if you're running around like, oh my gosh, this thing and I'm channeling. It's like, just chill out. That's me. Probably part of that is my personality, but.
Well, you said that even in what you wanted to talk about energy, people pick up energy. So if you're going to have that I don't believe it energy, then that's what you're going to put off to the people that you're working with. They're going to feel that I'm not really grounded and very passionate and committed to this type of modality. They're going to pick that up.
Absolutely. And, you know, the other thing that they're going to pick up, you will attract. So like, let's say, like, when I wasn't ready, I wasn't having clients that were going to talk to me about these things. Once I started to be ready to do this kind of work, and even like when I started mentoring, what happened? All of the people walking through my door were like people who needed mentoring, who were like psychic was all get out in different capacities, and just didn't know what in the world was happening to them. Now, statistically speaking, if I have 5 people coming in and all 5 were like that, that's not how the world is made up. I mean, we're talking about, you know, a small percentage of the population that is not anyway, but so this was happening because I was ready. And so like absolutely the energy, like what we're ready for, what are we available for? And that's what we'll see more of, right? So.
Right. Exactly. If you build it, they will come.
Absolutely.
Just that way. Yeah. Yeah. So is that how then you started this whole program, was through this, the experience of transforming through the people that you were working with in the beginning? The expansion program that you're doing?
No, that happened because it was supposed to.
Okay. I like that answer. That was a very good answer. Way better than my question.
I think that, you know, certainly my whole life has prepared me for where I am and where I'm going.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything had happened differently than it has, I wouldn't be prepared.
Right.
And it's important to remember that no matter what your path is, no matter what your mission is, no matter what your purpose is like, really know that when life sucks really bad, I promise you it'll get better. Yeah. And I promise that it'll later on, it'll make sense.
Yes.
And that you get to where you're going in the amount of time that it takes you to get there.
And there's no hurry.
Yeah.
There's
and
really,
I understand when we're in pain, you know, and when we're suffering. I deeply understand the sensation of hurry, you know, because you just want to stop hurting.
Right.
You know. And so I do understand that. And it's just knowing that it does get better and it does change and it does become purposeful, especially when, you know, we're making good conscious decisions and we're healing and we're moving forward. Even when it's hard, it's almost always purposeful and just continue on, you know, kind of thing.
Well, I believe that nothing ever happens to us by accident. Everything that happens in our life has a point to it. And if we could just embrace that and understand it, then life would go easier. But, you know, it's not always a good thing. Sometimes we're learning hard lessons for our growth.
I agree. And sometimes part of it is not understanding
it. Sometimes.
Right. Because it's contrast.
But we've always learned something from everything.
Absolutely.
And whether we understand it or not, we've always learned from whatever experience we've gone through. And it has made us stronger.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
And the idea is that stronger then becomes change. It becomes different than looping out and doing the same thing over and over. Right. The idea we learn the things, we actually evolve in the learning rather than just learning and then we did it again and we do it again and we do it again, which is a whole nother thing. But yeah.
So tell people exactly what your program is that you're doing, because now there's the backbone to it, but what exactly is it?
So what it is the expansion principle. I will tell one more story because it's related to that.
As many as you like. So fascinating.
So after I was like channeling the energy and like relationship and working with it and all of that, really all of the time, you know, essentially, I think that went on for a couple of years, just like that. And I thought, this is what we're doing. This is my path. I'm going to have a practice. I'm going to have this big thing. Okay, cool. This is all I'm going to do. This works. And then I was having a massage one day and the words expansion principle came in and then they left and they came in and then they left. And I'm like, well, if I'm supposed to do something with that, I have to remember. And then it came back in and it stayed. And I'm like, okay. And then it just started, I started getting these tidbits of, no, this is not just for you. I'm like, okay, sure. And we're going to tune somebody. Okay, sure. And I think at that point I didn't overthink it too much. I just sort of knew, I don't know. there's a lot of cuckoo and spinning out and all that stuff because I'm human, right? But
Yeah.
like in terms of like, in terms of that part, I just like,
Right.
okay. And then I knew that that was happening, that was coming. I hadn't concrete business wise created anything. And like, I didn't make the modality. It's something that happened, that was born and that needed to exist and has existed. It's just our awareness of it. And so I was at a retreat. I was in a spiritual business mastermind group, and we had a retreat. And one of the women there, so the way that the coach set it up is that there was coaching sessions with her, and then there was 3 or 4 different rooms set up with different types of activities and exercises to do. And so because it's a spiritual business mastermind, it's like, you know, reading cards and da 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 and all this stuff. And there was like you know, a mediumship or whatever kind of room. So this woman and I, who had just met, by the way, really liked her, lovely woman. She's a DO. So she, we were doing all of the stations together.
Okay.
Now in this, what's important to note is that I had friends in this group and they were all busy with doing something else that they had been planned out. They were part of a structured thing that was operating over here and I wasn't. What was the reason I state that is because had I been doing it with them, it would have just been this light, fun kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's likely that what happened wouldn't have happened. So anyway, so I'm with this woman, we're sitting down, talking about mediumship, talking about channeling, and I'm teaching her how to do something. And I somehow tell her about, you know, the energy in Simon. And she's like, well, do you want to channel him? And thinking sort of like a la Seth or Abraham Hicks, right? And he doesn't really roll that way. Not really that, but so I got the nudge, like, we're going to attune her, ask her if she'll be attuned. And so I asked her and she said, sure. And at that time, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I said, I didn't create this, right? It was like a co-creation, but only because I'm the human passing it through, like, right. And so I just listened and did what I was told to do. And like, she felt something and then she was able to send the energy to me. And that was that. A modality was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did she react to how you attuned her? What was her results? What were her results? Sorry, my grammar.
No, oh, you're fine. So there's physical sensations and awareness of something altering and changing in her body. It's so the first level of attunements is broken up into 4 attunements. What I've checked in my understanding is that she only received the first of the 4 for the first one.
Oh, okay.
And we'll get into why later about all that stuff. But anyway, she actually was able to transmit the energy. That's the result, is that she was able to transmit the energy. What we noticed is that it worked best on physical pain, not really too much else. And so, you know, as the modalities developed and I have attuned people, there's a difference. You know, there's each layer it's like a layer that enmeshes. So it doesn't surprise me that that's all that was. It was 1/4 of the entire of level 1, right? But she was able to utilize it. And so, you know, asking what the results are is that she could use it and it actually was doing something, reducing pain.
Wow.
And so after that, it was like, okay, we're going to attune more people. And I had known we would attune one and then others, but I didn't really plan it out. And like, you know, it just sort of happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. At that point, I got in my own way and like the human and like blah, 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 blah. And then after a couple of attempts of rolling out the program, we finally got it going in June and had 7 practitioners for the first round that were trained. And so now that we said that, we'll say, what in the world is it? So the program is becoming, the main thing about the program is becoming attuned to the energies. And being able, like I would say, that is 90% of the program and the purpose of the program and the value of the program is becoming attuned. And what happens to a practitioner and the evolutionary process that's occurring for that person. So these expansion energies, what they're doing is they're healing that spiritual soup that we have, right? The spiritual soup meaning all of the things that are held within our DNA. So it is healing the DNA because that's what holds our stuff, our trauma, our all of the things are, you know, both ancestrally and, you know, past life and collective consciousness, and like just all of the things are in there. And that's part of like, that's what holds us back. If we were to label what holds us back, it's like that soup. That's what requires healing, right?
Yeah.
So yes, time's not linear, right? But we experience it as linear for the purposes of healing and learning and growing. And so healing those pieces, those things that have happened before us, heals forward. And that's what EP does, is that it heals all the way forward to us and all the way forward to our progeny, right? And that's, we're changing and altering a piece and changing the resonance, healing the resonance of something. So if there was an event that happened XYZ at this time 1,000 years ago, that caused a person to create this idea that, you know, men are horrible or whatever detail, right? And you're able to go in and actually heal that resonance. All of these generations have made decisions based on that one energetic resonance that's there in a lot of different ways, right? And so in healing those pieces, that's, to me, that's how we raise our consciousness, is by having not as much junk unhealed.
Right, exactly.
Because you can't be operating at a different level of consciousness if you have all of this garbage. It's just not possible. It's not the way it works.
Right.
So that to me is the whole point of healing, is because it's allowing for us to go from, really simply put, from reaction to response.
Yeah.
Right? Changing that consciousness. So that being said, with what EP does on people, just doing the energies, and is that there's a subtlety to it that's really beautiful, and it meets people where they are. So it's not like lambasting them across the head and like, you know, they're in bed for 2 weeks because they had this thing happen to them. There's this gentleness about it that is so beautiful and profound to me, you know. And becoming a practitioner, becoming attuned, these energies are with you all the time. It's not just a transmission like that. I do lives and stuff and do transmissions and things like that. I don't know if you've seen any of them, but that's like in a moment, right? And where with becoming attuned, you're becoming attuned. You are matching these frequencies. You are becoming a clear transmitter for these frequencies. And there's healing that is happening to these people that are becoming practitioners. And that was one of the most exciting things that I saw. It's like, we're not just giving people a tool to go out and be productive members of the service and healing, you know, professional, because that's a part of it. But it's that there's a process of healing that's occurring for them that is so unique and profound. So
can I ask you, because I'm hearing what you're saying, and I'm trying to and I know people are responding here. In fact, I was thinking about a friend of mine, Denise, that just put a big heart, because she's doing something a little different. And I know she's like zooming in on this, like, oh my God, this is so amazing. But when you're doing the attuning and it's staying with that person, then they're now attuned to that level of vibration. Are you dealing with kind of the collective of Simon, or how is, you know, like Abraham Hicks is a collective, right? Is it kind of working the same way with Simon, or is this kind of like a medical, well, not, it wouldn't even be medical, because really attuning is not, our physical body isn't really the whole picture. That's just tiny, tiny sliver to the whole bigger picture of who we are. So how does that work? And how, so when you are tuning somebody and they go through this whole process, then they are now like a member of, I don't know how to describe that, but like they're now in that energy level that they can go on with other people and keep sharing that. Is that basically the process of what you're talking about, or am I misunderstanding?
So my understanding is not that they become a part of Simon, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know that these are concepts that it's even difficult for me to like talk about it and put words to it. But no, it's different. It's, oh gosh, I love metaphors, and I'm trying to think of one that would be helpful for us, but I'm not really coming up with one. So,
well, I don't think that I'm asking that. Do the people that you attune become a part of Simon, but that you're raising that person's vibration
yes.
to the equivalent of that consciousness? Is that what's happening? No.
No. So what the attunement does is it allows for the raise of consciousness and healing of frequency to allow that raise of consciousness to a more elevated level. Because I would say that I haven't even reached where we're capable of going with this. So it is stair-step processes, and it is on purpose because we're in human bodies.
Right.
And our physical body is the conduit by which we have our spiritual experiences.
Right.
And still needs to operate in the way it operates. You know, we have an endocrine system, we have a neurological system. There's all these things that we're bound by. So yes, we're soul, but you know, we still need, it is helpful when things go gently to not like we want to keep our human alive.
Exactly.
Yeah. And a side note, I think that that's part of why like our community, meaning you spiritual practitioners and psychics and et cetera, have a lot of autoimmune and those sorts of issues, because the physical body, I mean, when you're getting that much input all of the time, the endocrine system is constantly being bombarded with fight or flight data, right? Again, that's a little side note, but that's important in understanding. Like that's why doing things in a gentle way is important. That's why this is just a part of where we can go. So yes, it does help heal to raise the consciousness,
right?
And then they're able to sort of like with Reiki, like when a person's Reiki attuned, they can then transmit Reiki. So
right.
People can now, transmit the expansion energies. And there will be a level where it's teacher where they can also then attune people. But at this point, it's like being able to offer healing, which in and of itself are amazing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I knew that, but that's where like I didn't totally expect what happened with the practitioners to happen. Like that, watching their lives change, like watching them just become more at peace and more at ease and greater flow with their stuff. That's been really cool.
That's big. That's a big struggle we all go through, for sure.
Sure.
So is there a time period that you go through? Because as we are human and we can't just catapult to things, is there how do you go through the process, and how long does that take?
Yeah, so I do the program. Level 1 is 4 months.
Okay.
And so the way it's set up is I also have modules, which is human side. That's for, the measurable, Alexis, what are you giving us kind of thing. What do you mean just these energies? So, but anyway, like,
so funny.
So yeah, but and honestly, I expected there to be a mix of like really highly skilled and elevated and ready to go people who are practitioners of other kinds, who know their stuff, who are like, oh yeah. But then I also knew it was going to be people who are like brand new, but just feel it. Yes, yeah. I don't need to do that. Yes, please. Right. And so for those people, I wanted to have a program that was allowing them to become thoughtful, skilled, ready practitioners. While yes, a lot of becoming a skilled practitioner is like that practice, but I wanted to give a nice base. And so the modules exist. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's 8 modules over the course of the 4 months. And so every 2 weeks, we have a module dripped out, and people can watch them and do it or not. Again, because the program is very much about the energies, but it also offers like we have, ethics are part of it, and you know, how to do the modality, like different ways to create a practice and like all of those sorts of things. So that's the module part. And that's why the reason why it's 4 months is because there's 4 attunements. And so we played with it the first time. We had a month apart. Each one was a month apart. And it felt like towards the end, it felt a little long. It's like, okay, we're ready. And so the second time was I did a month apart for 1 and 2. And then I think I did 3 weeks, and then we did 2 weeks. And so they had about 7 weeks fully attuned at the end of the program, which was really awesome because it allowed for us to continue to practice and continue to grow and like all of that, which was really, you know, amazing. And I liked that. And I liked how it went for them.
So then you have the level 1, and then you do that for 4 levels. Is that what you're saying? Like you do level 1, you do the first 4 months, and then you do another level after that?
So you could, but the 4 months has 4 parts to that first level, right? And then we haven't gotten that far. I know that there's a level 2, and I know that there's a teacher.
Yeah.
So that's 3 altogether. And that's what we have right now. But it's interesting. You said 4. There may be 4. You know, right? And yeah. So our plan in terms of just everything is within the next 18 months or so to have some of our students become teachers as well. And so, you know, and being it, because I can't attune everybody, you know, it's just realistic or possible. And, you know, I know that this is important. I see what this can do, you know, and again, the little girl who just wants to do what she's supposed to do. Right. So yeah, so the best way to go about that is really to have teachers and go out and attune other people.
Right.
So on a practical level, it is, you know, for someone who's really engaged and captivated and committed, it is something that can go on to be a career, you know, and being able to not just be a practitioner, but also teach and that sort of thing. So.
What are some of the feedback and the results that you're getting from the people that have been with you?
So in terms of, because it's 2-part question, right? The people who are just recipients of the energies and healing sessions, and then the practitioners themselves. So I mentioned I was a doula earlier, which for those of you just hopping on is a labor support person.
Thank you for saying that again.
Yeah. So the reason I mentioned that because I utilized the expansion energies a lot in labor, especially towards, I haven't attended a birth in quite some time, but there was a period of about 12 months that actually it was less than that, a period of 6 months when I like was just at births all the time. Like, where's Alexis birth? And so it was interesting to me because their birth and death are very similar. And spiritually speaking, there's a lot of spiritual and energetic things that are occurring during those 2 processes. And the amount of healing that occurs and that has the ability to occur in both those experiences. There's just, because in death, there's absolutely, if a person is well supported in death, which in this country, we do a poor job of that. But when a person is well supported in death and in the death process, there's just this beautiful ability to heal so much matter and heal so much material, right? And the same is true when a woman is laboring. There's so much that comes up, and it's really beautiful. And like the expansion energies, what they're doing is healing at the root, right? They're healing at the origination. So you combine that with a person who's already, you know, ripe for healing, because that's what the process is, right? It's birthing a life, it's birthing a mother, it's healing generations, it's just all of these things. And so what I noticed was, and from doing it and not doing it with the same person, like I could tell and notice changes in pain reduction. EP's like, pain is like no issue. Like that's it's easy to do with pain. But also what I noticed is And birth is a tricky one, just like anything. Like it's so easy to say, well, we don't actually know if that helped or if that's just what was going to happen, you know? Um,
Yes, I do
and
know.
that is what it is, you know, what are you
Yeah.
gonna
Uh-huh.
do? But yeah, allowing for things to flow with more ease.
Yeah.
There's this part of me that wants to say it sped up the labor, but that's not quite what it was. It was allowed the process to flow with ease, right? It
Right.
allowed for dilation and like all of this stuff to
Mhm.
flow with ease.
Mhm.
I'll say, you know, in terms, again, results in terms of the modality itself, without even talking about becoming a practitioner, but just the modality. It's when I first started doing it online, because for a long time I'd only done my practice.
Wow. How
And
long
so
have you been doing it online?
how long? A year and a half?
Wow.
Feels like yesterday. um yeah, but I was just kind of thrust into the online space, and I I really try hard to just listen. I don't always do that, but I
Yeah.
really try hard to listen. And it just was like, okay, you're gonna go do a live and you're gonna do a transmission. Like, what are you talking about?
I've been there.
Oh gosh, right?
I know
But then
exactly
you
what you're
do it. And it's like, you know, and people show up and
Uh-huh.
then we change the world.
Yes,
Um,
you're right.
yeah, and so doing them, that I learned a lot from that. I learned that distance transmissions are almost even more powerful than in person.
Mhm. I agree.
It's crazy. It's
Mhm.
just crazy. I think part of it is because there's a certain amount of faith already when a
Mhm.
person says, yes, I believe you can do something for me, and I can't, you're not in the same room as me.
Mhm.
And it allows the mind to go sit in the corner a little bit, because a lot of healing is just asking the
Mhm.
mind, can we do some stuff? We're busy. Can you just hang
Yeah.
out? And I find that online it helps that happen. There's this faith, there's just enough space of like, yes, something can
Mhm.
change.
Mhm.
And like pain reduction from 9 to 0, like chronic migraines, like just crazy stuff. The pain stuff is just it's in the beginning that was the most common thing that people
Mhm.
were saying they wanted help with. And I
Mhm.
think part of that was probably for my own process to learn and
Mhm.
really do my own research of
Mhm.
sorts of what it was doing in a really big way, right? um but then also the psycho emotional type stuff,
Yeah.
because you know pain is measurable and that's
Yes.
great and
Yeah.
that's important, right? But
Mhm.
that psycho emotional piece, that being able to heal something, like, you know, always being afraid. Oh, I had a client always afraid that she was going to lose her children,
Mm.
and specifically her female children. She had four, two of each. And
Mhm.
it was just like, she's like, oh, I worry a lot. And we talked, and it's like, that is not worry. Worry, you can process, you find a solution and you put it away.
Right.
This is, you know, something else. And
Right.
so we did, you know, some energy and did a session. And I then asked her, okay, well, think about something happening to your girls. The sensation wouldn't come up.
Hmm.
Fear, that deep like anxiety, and like it
Mhm.
just, she couldn't touch it anymore.
Hmm.
That's the thing. Go ahead.
Have you been keeping a diary or notes so you can like maybe use this one day in some kind of medical partnership?
I have, and I also have, that's one of the plans for the next year, is I'm working on measurable stuff right now.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I have a couple of different people that have different instruments that measure
Mhm.
frequency, and just there's different ways to do it all.
Mhm.
um but that's really high on the priority.
Mhm.
Number one, measuring the results of the person, right,
Yeah.
in different ways. One of the things that I really want to do is thermography in the moment, like noticing
Yeah.
that. That would
Mhm.
be cool.
Mhm.
Frequency, like there's just so many different ways. I don't just want to measure it one way. Like I want to measure it. I just want to
Yeah.
measure it. Right? And before that
I
science,
thought
you know, that,
somebody put in there a funny comment, so I didn't mean to laugh and bother
oh,
you.
that's okay. That's okay. I see comments, so I'll look at it later.
Yeah,
Uh,
they're good.
oh, good. Thank you all for being here with us and watching. I love the
And
interaction.
everybody's so interactive here. It's cracking me up. Your mom is doing wonderful work for you. She's doing my job in answering people's questions. And
Oh, she's very good at that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead, because this is intriguing, because I could see this being so helpful for the medical community
Yeah.
if they would embrace it. And that's all scientific.
Yes, because it is
information.
medical, and I know that this. I mean, I know this with all my heart. This is legitimate, right?
Yeah.
And as a human being, it's so much fun to see. Like, oh my God, it works. Like, of course it works, but it's just like I still, it's just funny. I'm a person too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that the measuring stuff is really important. The changes before and after for people long term, so not just before and after a session, but like before treatment at all, and then like 6 months from now, like what is happening, what has changed, what is staying changed, as well as measuring. And I don't know how this would even work, but like what is happening with the practitioner as the energies are being transmitted, because that I find really fascinating too. Brain stuff. I mean, there's so much. I mean, I'm not to that part. I can't do like the neuro stuff will come later.
Yeah.
But
you're
there's
thinking about it. It's something that's on your agenda. Definitely, I see on your agenda.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Which could go far. So you have your class for this just started on Monday, but you are not so far in. If people wanted to jump in, they can. Do you want to talk a little about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the third round of our practitioner training for the expansion principle. And this, like she said, this past Monday we started, but what we did is we did a welcome live stream, which is available in the private Facebook group that can be replayed, as well as the first module has been released. The first attunement is next week. And so we kind of made some space so that people can still join us and register. And it's the kind of thing that it's a felt sense. It's like, you just know when this is for you, like you are aware. It's like, yes, that's mine. Thanks. Like, let's do this thing. And as far as like the business end of stuff, there are payment plans and there are arrangements and all of that. And it's important. Yeah.
We will add I have in the description your website, and we'll put it in the comments as well so they can get
perfect. Yeah. Absolutely. And your people are welcome to message me and love that.
Awesome. Yeah. If anybody has any more questions, I know we've come up to the hour. Is there and just post it now. Is there any last words that you want to leave people with, or something that you feel is like really touching you that you want to talk about?
Keep being awesome.
I love that. Yes. My favorite word.
Such a good one. Yeah, we have to do this work. We have to continue to do this. There is some really messed up stuff in the world. We are all aware of that. We can change it. It is not too late. We have a choice and we have an obligation to alter things, to change things. This is why healing is important, because we just have to. Healing equates change in consciousness, elevations of consciousness. Elevation of consciousness means we can actually solve the problems that we have. If we do not do that, we cannot solve them, period.
Just gave me chills. You're so right on that. And we are moving forward, but I don't want to go on that. I'll go back to that. Marilyn had a good question. Do you need any kind of prior experience to join the class, or can anybody sign up right now?
So you do not need prior experience. I would say being motivated and excited matters. Being, grounded in a good, stable mental state is important as well. Which is why we chat before, you enroll and all of that. But no experience is required. It's funny, the first round, I think only of the 7, only one of them had any kind of experience with any kind of energy work. I mean, one was a Reiki practitioner. Everybody else were essentially lay people. They didn't even one did oracle cards, oracle guide stuff, But other than that, I mean, it wasn't, yeah, so you don't need experience.
You
It's
don't
just
need
a matter of, yeah.
it. Yeah. And, back to what you were saying, and now Becky, thank you, Becky, for chiming in on that. So what we were saying though, is that the more that we do this kind of work, the more that we keep moving forward and raising our vibration, the more we're raising the vibration for the planet. So
Absolutely.
definitely back to what you were saying, that's very important.
It is. It's incredibly important. And something that came up for me recently was our relationship. I read it somewhere and then some other things came through, but our relationship, what do I want to say? What I actually want to say is that part of the reason why we're incarnated
Uh-huh.
isn't just the human experience, but it's the human experience of being on Earth, on this conscious planet, on this living being. And so it's something that a lot of spiritual communities don't always touch on that part. It's
Yeah.
very much about elevation and ascension and this and that. And it's like part of being a human is like this interaction with her, is this interaction with this beautiful living being that we happen to inhabit.
Yes. And
Um,
respecting it.
yes, yes. And
Yeah.
like what she's also doing for us, and um what is the Schumann resonance came up recently for me. It's something that I've been aware of. Are you familiar with the Schumann resonance?
No,
So the Schumann resonance has to do with the hertz that the earth gives off.
Okay.
It used to be around 4 to 6 hertz, right? And so now we get these spikes that go from 20 to 40 to 60 hertz.
Wow.
And so they're saying, people who are sensitive can notice and feel these things. And one of the things that I was reading about is that part of why this is happening, part of why the earth is doing this, is because she has the ability with this energy. What does energy do when it comes through us? It clears it, it heals it. It's, one of healing should be gentle if possible, but I mean, anybody on here who's had significant wackadoo spiritual experiences, sometimes they're not simple and quiet. Sometimes they're loud as all get out, and your body has to experience it. And so we're getting to a point where I wouldn't quite say desperate, but we have to like do something, right? And so I think that that's part of why the earth is doing these things, because it's assisting us so that we can assist her, that kind of thing. So it's the symbiotic relationship that that we need to get back to. And that I think we're being assisted in doing that too by the earth itself.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that more and more people are starting to see the importance of really taking care of Mother Earth. But I really agree with you that and one of the things that I've been seeing more and more, it's not about us leaving our bodies and ascending and growing in that way. We are a soul here in this body to have a human experience, to evolve as a soul. So if we're not here, then we're missing the point. Yes. And to be able to go through it with a lot more ease and effortless would be a really important thing, because it can get pretty hard. And
it can.
And if you don't have a good team around you, and if you don't have the help, or even when you're lost, like, you're talking about people that are just coming into this kind of way of thinking, it's very overwhelming. There's so much to tap into. So I see how this would be also very helpful for that. Yeah. So it's been great. Thank you so much for sharing. Again, if you have any comments or questions, please leave them down below. I was kind of watching your comments because they were funny. But I normally don't answer them while I'm talking, because I wanted to concentrate on you. But today I had a little more trouble because you guys were funny today. They had good questions.
Have a bunch of my people are on there, and they are used to enter. They're like,
they had really good questions. They did a really good job. So thank you so much for sharing. And now that we have our list, we'll have to do it again, because I think we covered about 20 topics in the beginning of.
We did. It was so fun. It was such a pleasure to speak with you.
It was. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Leave your comments. Thank you for watching this on the replay. And we will talk again next time.